Hey folks, on today's show we welcome Chris Kelly from Nourish, Balance, Thrive.
So we know that our current system of healthcare doesn't scale, and it seems to me like the whole thing would scale so much better if all of these smart people listening to these podcasts were to just get their hands dirty a little bit and do the exact opposite of what all the doctors want you to do, and that's to educate yourself and understand what your test results mean. You know, when someone comes to me and they order a blood chemistry, I'm not going to just like hand you a list of supplements without ever talking to you. I'm going to do my best to explain to you what these results mean. And then your job, I hope, is to try and figure out what it means when you see high potassium and low sodium on a blood chemistry. Like, don't take my word for it. So I think that's what kind of makes me different, or that's what I really want to do. I want to be an educator rather than a prescriber, if that makes sense.
That's coming up. Okay, great stuff coming up from Chris Kelly. This guy is on a mission to empower people to really take control of their health. And speaking of taking control of your health, please head over to rebelhealthtribe.com for tons of great free articles, videos, recipes, and more that will help you do just that. Free members gain access to even more cutting-edge content like our incredibly popular microbiome series, free interviews, and more. Premium members get even more amazing stuff like our Primal 90 Total Transformation System, which is a 12-module education and action step series that will help you radically change your life for the better. Premium members also gain access to over 50 exclusive interviews and webinar replays, every single series we produce, and even our discount club. In fact, I just opened up a box of fermented awesomeness from Bao Food and Drink, and guess what? I saved almost $10 off the already discounted price. We actually have our own Rebel Health Tribe collection over there, which you should check out. It's an awesome assortment of kombucha and fermented ketchup and fermented beets and more. That's the Rebel Health Tribe collection at Bao Food and Drink. Plus, we have over 30 other companies in our discount club featuring hundreds of products. And right now, you can join as a premium member for free for 30 days. Just go to rebelhealthtribe.com/join and use the code REBELPOD when you check out. That's rebelhealthtribe.com/join. Okay, on with the show. Chris Kelly joins us for a very insightful conversation. This guy is dedicated, to say the least, when it comes to researching health. I mean, this guy is deep. He goes deep into it and spends about 100 hours a week just reading and researching and, ultimately helping a lot of people. He also has a podcast that you should check out called Nourish, Balance, Thrive, and his wife runs another podcast called Paleo Baby. Both are awesome, so you should check those out. Okay, here's Mike and I with Chris Kelly. Enjoy. Welcome, everyone, to the Rebel Health Tribe podcast. I'm not sure what episode this is going to be because we're recording like 8,000 episodes in a couple of weeks. So something like that, right, Mike?
Yeah, somewhere around 8,000.
Today we're joined by Christopher Kelly from Nourish, Balance, Thrive. What's up, guys?
How's it going?
Hello. Good to be here. Thank you.
For those who don't know, I was going to introduce Chris a little bit. Chris is the co-founder of Nourish, Balance, Thrive, as Joe mentioned, which is the best way I could phrase it is a functional health coaching cooperative featuring an excellent team of practitioners. He also has an extensive background in competitive cycling, which ultimately led him down the path of studying health, wellness, and functional medicine. He switched careers in 2014 to pursue this endeavor full-time and now has a thriving practice and very popular podcast of his own. He's also a contributor with us at Rebel Health Tribe and one of our go-to experts for complex cases. So how did I do there? Good
That's
summary,
great,
Chris?
Michael. I'm going to transcribe that. I'm going to put it on my website because you've done a much better job than I ever could.
All right. Yeah, well, I was looking at your team there, and like health coaching cooperative seemed to be a way to describe it, and it's an excellent team. So when people head on over to your site, they'll see it. But it's a cool setup you've got as a team. It's something I'm trying to look to put together too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I've been interested in putting together a startup business for the longest time, and I knew that one of the deciding factors would be, can I find a group of like-minded individuals to do something, because one person a startup does not make. And I was kind of surprised. I always thought, I'm a computer scientist, and I always thought that startup would be something to do with computer programming or something to do with the web or the internet. And and in the end, it was something completely different. And really, the key was right. The thing I was looking for was that group of like-minded individuals, and I think it's amazing to work with a bunch of people who are all really enthusiastic, really excited, and knowledgeable about what they do is just like the most amazing thing.
Awesome. So we did the brief bio there that Mike very eloquently put together. You want to give us a little bit more history, a little bit more about your background and how you went from internet, working on internet, Yahoo, and development sites like that to being a health coach and the expert that we go to.
Sure. Yeah. No. So I was quite happy for a long time being a computer scientist. I graduated from Southampton University in the UK, as you can probably tell from my accent. So I'm British, and I was living in London until about 13 years ago, when Yahoo brought me over to the States and Sunnyvale and Silicon Valley and all of that exciting stuff. I'm a really active outdoors person, always been into cycling, always been into kiteboarding and snowboarding and anything to do with the outdoors. And it was a really fun opportunity for me to come to California and be where all of those activities are. And I think I've definitely made some bad choices in my life. Like I know now I'm pretty sensitive to certain foods that I was eating even when I lived in the UK. But really the wheels totally came off the wagon when I moved to the US, and I had a really terrible time with my health, a lot of fatigue, a lot of brain fog, terrible insomnia, really low sex drive. And I thought it would not be a problem because I had really good health insurance. Yahoo, Amazon. I was working for a hedge fund before I started Nourish, Balance, Thrive. They took pride in providing the best healthcare they thought was possible. And of course, I went to the doctor, and the primary caregivers in particular were really worse than useless. And the specialists were not much better. So I had a lot of GI complaints. Went to a gastroenterologist. The gastroenterologist wasn't interested in what I was eating. It's kind of a red flag there.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah, so just had a really terrible time of it, and at the same time I was lucky enough to meet the woman who's now my wife. She's now working with me at Nourish, Balance, Thrive as a food scientist. So she just finished her master's degree in food science, and she was like, no, this gastroenterologist is an idiot. You need to stop listening to them. They're saying, oh, you should go do surgery, or you should go take anti-inflammatory steroid drugs for the rest of your life, that type of thing. She's like, no, that's not a good solution. We have to try other things first. And that's kind of what led me down that path of learning that, before we got on air, you said how steep it's been, and it has been, and it continues to be steep. But it's just so much fun to learn, about how different foods can affect your body, and, you make some changes and you see some improvements, and then I didn't see all of the improvements that I eventually enjoyed just through diet and lifestyle alone. I needed to do some lab work and figure out what was going on, the residual kind of 5 or 10%. And by fixing those problems I found on the lab tests with nutritional supplements and maybe some other diet and lifestyle changes, I've had fantastic results. And like with anything, when you discover something amazing, you don't want to be a jerk and just keep it to yourself, right? You want to kind of like help other people. And it seemed to me that this was my startup. Like how many other people are like being affected by this? Is it none? Is it a lot? And of course the answer is a lot. And that's what led me to starting a business in health coaching. And now I can't get enough of it. Even 2 years later, I'm still doing 100 hours a week, like reading scientific studies and stuff to try and figure out how all this stuff works. And just super motivated, and the whole thing came out of necessity.
So what's your secret? You mentioned before we went on the air, I said you have a really steep learning curve, and you've only been full time with this a couple years, and like you're one of my go-tos with really complex questions or cases, and a lot of others have been doing it for 10 years. So what's the secret?
I think actually I said there's one secret. There's actually, now when I think about it, I think there's more than one, right? So nobody cares about the problem more than you do. That's one thing I've discovered. So whenever the test results are yours, you're going to look at them in a way that nobody else will. Like not your doctor, not your girlfriend, not your mum, no one else. Like, so having the test results for me is like incredibly powerful incentive to learn. And so that's what's kind of really driven me and motivated me to do so much learning. And I keep getting great results. I'm a pro mountain biker. I race cyclocross at the elite level, And you get to a point, I'm 40 years old now, nearly 40, where, how much more training can you do that's really going to get you good results, right? It just doesn't, you plateau at some stage. And, I find subtle problems on the lab results and fix those, then that gets me tremendous benefit in terms of my athletic performance. So kind of that kind of motivation is definitely one part of the secret. But I guess the main one is Dr. Tommy Wood. He's been on my podcast a number of times. So I met Tommy. Tommy's a medical doctor. He is he's currently studying doing a PhD in neonatal brain metabolism at the University of Oslo in Norway. He's also a really strong exercise scientist, really good biochemist. And he just approached me after hearing one of my podcasts, and we just struck up a kind of a friendship. And he is now, we signed some paperwork a couple of weeks ago. He's now my chief medical officer. And we exchange many email, like 1,000 words of email a day. And every time I ask him a question, he says, okay, so here's what I can find on this that answers your question. And there'll be 6 papers attached to the email response. So rather than just kind of, how do you tackle PubMed, right? When there's tens of thousands of scientific studies published. For me. Yeah, you can't. You really can't, especially for someone like me that doesn't have a background in a core science. And so to have someone like Tommy who teaches medical students, to have me, kind of orientate me and show me, which he thinks are the most important papers, is a really powerful asset. And of course, how many people can Tommy teach one-on-one like that? And the answer is I don't know, not very many. So yeah, it is a kind of a secret, and well, not now, but yeah, it's been a very powerful tool for learning. I'm sorry, it's not very helpful for everyone because I know that not everyone can go get a world-class biochemist to teach them this stuff.
Yeah, his bio, when you introduced me to him and I read his bio or his background, I was just like, come on, this guy has to be like 60 years old to have completed all of this PhD work and all these things, and he's a young guy, so. Yeah,
he's only he's like, I think he's just about to turn 30.
Wow.
And yeah, he's
it's bonkers, Joe. What's his?
I know.
It's like neonatal neurology, or.
Yeah, so he has an undergraduate degree in biochemistry from Cambridge, and then he graduated as a medical doctor from Oxford. So these are the 2 most prestigious academic institutions in the UK. And now he's doing his PhD, and then his plan afterwards is to come to the US and do another residency. And I think he's completely bonkers, but his goal in life, it would seem, is to, we talked about this before we got on air. Like, there's some doctors doing some really wacky things that hold to beliefs which are probably not true and are hurting a lot of their patients and people in general. And so Tommy's mission in life is to engage the scientific community and those doctors and have them see that what they're doing is wrong, and then change the world at a higher level than maybe how I'm changing it on a kind of one-to-one basis, one person at a time.
That's pretty fascinating. So it may not be helpful, but it certainly is interesting, and he sounds like an interesting character. I want to back up a little bit. You said you moved to the U.S. and your health got worse because you started eating our food, basically.
Yeah, I think that's got to be a big part of it, isn't it?
Never would have guessed that outcome at all.
You ever see those videos online that go around where they take people from a certain country or other places and they give them a bunch of our food, and it's on video, like them trying it? And I saw one with like Hostess treats, like Ho-Hos and Twinkies, or there was another with I don't remember what it was, but the reactions are. I think they did one with people from Ireland, and then another one with people from
Italy, I think.
Italy, I don't remember, but it was really funny to just watch. They would like poke at it and laugh because they'd heard of it but never seen one, and then the reactions were pretty priceless. And you're not the only person we've talked to that or that I've talked to at least, who comes from somewhere else, and they said, "Oh yeah," and then I moved to the States and my health went to shit. Right. I think it's
it's pretty common. It's pretty common. But when you were growing up in the UK, was health like a central focus point of your childhood growing up, or was there a point when you decided to kind of take the reins and you gain more interest in this?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I've kind of always been a wreck. I should, make that clear. I can remember my mum as, talking about like my stinky diapers, like something was wrong, and they're feeding me, the milk formula out of a tin that's got dairy and God knows what else in it that I'm super sensitive to, and for whatever reason they never figured it out, and my dear old mum has just like finally come around to it and is eating a paleo type diet now, and it is
Wow.
getting in great results. But yeah, it seems there was something special that like really pushed me over the edge when I came to the US. And of course, I'm eating the food that was provided for me by Yahoo in their canteens, right? So I'm sure a lot of people listening to this will know about this stuff. If you're an engineer in Silicon Valley, these companies, they want to cater to your every need. So there's less chance of you wanting to leave the campus and then not be available to take calls or do work or whatever else it is that the company wants you to do. And of course, they just, what it's like, the restaurant business, they don't really care about, how well you do in the long term or how long you live. They just want to make you happy in the short term.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, so they're hitting all
usually
that.
that means hyper-palatable food and big quantities and big portion sizes. And so that's what these canteens typically do, although now I'm hearing that some of them are better. But yeah, when you give someone, an uneducated person, like free choice over anything they could ever want to eat, like usually the outcome is bad.
Yeah, sure. It's cinnamon buns and covered with sugar, and why not?
Yeah.
It's all there. Yeah. But was that? I would imagine growing up it was still quote unquote real food, but you just had sensitivities to things like dairy, and no one could figure that out.
Right. Well, I would say, there was definitely more real foods, but I certainly ate my fair share of stuff that came out of the freezer,
Okay.
and then you heat it up in the oven. Do you know, like these kind of
Yeah, like the
um,
microwave dinners, like that we
yeah,
had.
well, not so much microwave dinners, but like sort of miscellaneous chicken parts covered in bread that
With
you
a
heat up
sauce.
in the oven. Yeah. Like reformed meat is like the kind of way, chicken nuggets, that type of thing. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
eating a lot of that, like, and things like baked beans, stuff that came out of a can with a lot of sugar in the sauce, and you kind of
Mhm.
heat it up, and yeah. So I'm definitely was no angel.
Yeah, Mike and I reminisce a lot about our Captain Crunch and sugary cereals growing up too. So,
It's
um,
it's funny you mentioned pork and beans. I had neighbors growing up, first generation Irish immigrants. Like the parents came from Ireland, the kids were all born in the States, but they all still had thick accents and the stereotypical red hair and freckles. And those people ate pork and beans literally like we never had it in our house. My dad doesn't like beans or pork and beans, so I'd never seen this food, and I would go over there, and it would just be like all day, every day, pork and beans all over with the hot dogs in it. It's
mm,
like, hot dog, pork and beans.
wow,
Um,
never had that one. That was not something
don't do it.
that
Just
escaped my
you've already
childhood.
passed that stage in life. Let's just
Yeah,
backwards.
good thinking.
So your podcast is awesome. To jump gears a little bit, can you just tell us a little bit about the podcast and what kind of topics you guys cover and what that's all about?
Yeah, sure. The podcast has been amazing, actually, and not for all the reasons that I thought it would be in the beginning. So the thing that motivated me to start it was because it was what I was used to. When I moved to the US, I used to listen to a lot of the BBC World Service, and so I was used to listening to the radio. And I kind of got into listening to podcasts that way. Like the BBC was one of the first organizations to do that type of broadcasting, with the MP3 downloads and all that kind of stuff. So I was kind of familiar with it that way. And I thought, when I started a business, it'd be a fun thing for me to do. And I thought it would be about reaching people, right? So just about, like actually communicating with people in a way that you couldn't otherwise. And in the end, I've realized almost the most valuable part of the podcasting has been meeting people. So, how else, when you look at the list of guests that I've had on the podcast, how else could I get, so say take Joe Friel, for example. So Joe Friel is probably the world's most famous endurance athlete. He's now in his 70s. He's been doing this since time immemorial. He's had countless, thousands, tens of thousands of athletes worth of experience. Plus, he's a very kind of scientific, evidence-driven guy too. And, you couldn't have him train you even if you wanted to pay for it. Right at this point, he doesn't need your money, and so to have him come onto the podcast and give me an hour or so of his time is literally, you can't put a price on that. And then afterwards I'll talk to Joe. He'll send me a copy of his book, and all this kind of, it's a relationship that I never could have had if it wasn't for the podcast, and I just never could have imagined that would have ever happened when I started it in the beginning.
It's a cool
That's
perk.
really cool.
We don't realize, like, when we did our online program, our Primal 90 program, we interviewed some I called Dr. Terry Walls and talked to her and a couple other people that it was the same type of thing, like, I can't believe I'm talking to this person, or that I can now email this person or whatever. And we get in the industry, you mentioned him, but in the industry as a whole, is there anyone who's been particularly important to you, or aside from Tommy, but that you've gotten to talk to through the podcast, or that you've learned from, or because people don't realize we get kind of starstruck at times too.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the word, starstruck.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing, and how else? So that's how we've got to this point where it's possible for your listeners to know more than a primary care physician that's in the local town. It's because of the internet, and it's because of podcasts, and it's because of this new way in which we can educate ourselves. It's just incredible. But yeah, no, there's, to answer your question, Brian Walsh in particular. So Brian Walsh is a naturopathic doctor from Maryland, I believe, and he is an incredible educator and the most honest, humble guy you'll ever meet. And he has, if you're listening to this and you're the sort of person that likes to get into technical details and understand the inner workings of things, then I think you'll really appreciate his Metabolic Fitness Pro training course. So Brian teaches medical students for a living. It's what he does. And he does it incredibly well. He stands up in front of a whiteboard and teaches biochemistry from first principles. He draws everything on the whiteboard, and it's the most incredible experience. And it's not a fast one, right? This is not a training course where, like, okay, so this is a cortisol test, and this is what it means when cortisol's low, and this is what it means when cortisol's high. It's like much, much deeper. It comes way, way before that kind of stuff. It gives you this grounding in biochemistry you can then build on to later understand these more advanced tests. So it's kind of, you need to be patient is what I'm saying, but it's a relatively inexpensive training course. I think it's $400, and Brian is someone I talk to quite regularly on email, and mostly through that training course, he has been the most wonderful educator, and again, I can't really speak highly enough of that guy.
Yeah, he's good. I love his. He's got a ton of whiteboard videos just on YouTube, which are just like he's giving great education out there for folks, and we got to get him on the podcast too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you should Google those. So I know he did a lot of work with Wellness FX to talk about their blood chemistry, and I would say that the blood chemistry stuff, it kind of comes after the Metabolic Fitness Pro stuff that I've done more recently. But yeah, if you want to kind of understand your blood chemistry a bit better. Nobody's seen those videos. Like, I look at the view counts on those now, and some of them, like 600 people have seen this video, and I'm like, are you kidding? Like,
it's priceless information. You're not going to get anywhere else.
And then you see, like, Jurian Ryder, 30 bananas a day guy, and it's like literally hundreds of thousands of people have seen those videos.
Yeah, which is helping no one.
Right.
I've met one Jurian Ryder disciple in my life, and he's a tattoo artist and worked on me. And when I first met him, he was a bigger guy. Like, I wouldn't say grossly overweight, but like a bigger guy. And but like funny and engaging and like really fun to be around and a cool guy. And over like a few years, he found, well, first he became vegetarian, then he became vegan, then he found Jurian Ryder and turned into a fruitarian, which, no, that's not a real thing. Stop it. And he did that, and so I noticed in the times I would go to see him, he became less engaging, less fun, and then he started to look similar to like a concentration camp victim, like
Yikes.
Bones, like gaunt face, like all this stuff, and now he's not even working anymore, and he's kind of turned into a hermit and a weirdo. And
wow.
Yeah, well, dude, he hasn't eaten like protein or fat in 3 years.
Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't like secretly tattoo vegan on your back or something.
Yeah, I actually had to have someone else finish the work he was doing on me because he got so pissed at my Facebook of, murdering animals that
Oh wow! So
he
he wouldn't even
work-
talk to you
he
anymore.
wouldn't talk to me anymore. Yeah.
I wonder though, is that kind of the vegetarianism or veganism, is it like a rite of passage? You know, you have to go through that to understand why it is that you need to eat protein and fat, and
Maybe.
eventually
yeah.
you will. He's just a few years behind you, right? Like I bet both of you have dabbled with either vegetarianism or veganism or both. I certainly know that I have. You know, it's like one of the things you try.
Yeah. I never went full vegan, but vegetarian for a while. I studied Ayurvedic nutrition, so that was that time of my life. that I was doing a lot of rice and beans and lentils and feeling really horrible from that. But yeah, I don't know.
I'm one who hasn't actually. I think I had a vegan meal once, but
Well, I have a vegan meals, and it's just called side dish.
It's a dish. I've never. I don't know. I've never dabbled in it myself, but a lot of people in our field have. So
I do know a couple of people who are vegans and healthy. So who knows? You know, I know someone who's vegan has bared 2 extremely healthy and happy children. So it kind of goes. I've kind of come full circle to where like I don't judge anyone for anything, and I
definitely don't engage in debates.
Yeah, that's for sure. But yeah, I try to remove all sort of dogma to it because, there may be a small subset of people that really works for, and that seems to be evident, at least anecdotally. But anyway.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. If I find out that eating saturated fat is evil after all, I will spin on a dime. Like you won't see me for dust.
Yeah,
you know,
there's strong enough evidence for it, sure.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's where the testing, I think, comes in. You know, because some of the blood chemistry in particular, I mean, that's very well understood at this point, and that's cheap as well. Like anyone can do it anywhere in the world for not very much money. And if you see some, unfavorable, like you start seeing your fasting insulin is 30 points or something, and you're eating a 90% carbohydrate diet, then I can show you some really good studies that says that that's probably bad news, and that maybe you need to make another decision.
Yeah, but, I think some people get so wrapped up in their head and so dogmatic about it that you could show them all the evidence in the world and it's not going to make a difference.
That goes on both sides, though. Just like politics, I've seen some, some low carbers who get shown, that's not perfect for everyone, or some, people who will refute any benefits of a ketogenic diet in any certain situation. Like there's dogma in every direction, I think.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to have some corn chips and salsa and be okay with that. Assuming you tolerate corn.
I was going to say,
yeah, I guess I had to throw that in.
Yeah, no, I've gotten to the point now where it's just like, certain things are just not worth the risk anymore. Like eating in Mexican restaurants, hucking big jumps on the mountain bike. Those things are just at 40 years old, my health insurance is just not good enough to cover those types of exploits anymore, and I just don't rebound from ththose crashes as well as I used to, and so I have to be a lot more conservative in my decision making.
Yeah, exactly. Once you hit 40, it's you have to take a step back and start thinking about things a little bit differently, I think.
Did you do distance endurance bike racing, or did you do like mountain biking and tracks and jumps and all that crazy stuff?
Oh yeah, so it's all endurance. I should make that kind of, anybody that does downhill, they think I was super wimpy in terms of my exploits on the mountain bike. So yeah, I do most of the events I compete in. The cyclocross is only 60 minutes. That's quite a short, high intensity event. But most of the mountain bike races are at least 90 minutes, and then some of them can be all the way up to 6 hours. And so this summer I'll be doing a 7-day stage race across Canada, and so that'll be a 3-hour bike race every day for a week.
Wow.
So that kind of, so that you've got to be a little bit more organized and a little bit in better shape. And the last time I've done that race before, and at that time I was eating a paleo diet but a lot of carbs, and we were staying in it. We have a Eurovan, which is actually quite luxurious for a stage race, but cooking sweet potatoes in a Eurovan is no fun whatsoever. So now I'm eating a high-fat ketogenic diet. I think that's going to be a ton easier, just because MCT oil, coconut oil, avocado, sardines, they're a lot easier to travel with.
Yeah, so you do well. You think you do well doing like a high endurance, like you said, 6 miles a day for a week? What is it?
Yeah, so 3 hours a day for a week, and that's kind of normal sort of training rides for me. Is like I can ride 3 or 4 hours just on plain water now.
Wow.
With the high fat diet, and that was so different. So that was kind of one of my complaints. Back in the day before I got into this was the blood sugar dysregulation, right? So you all know what this is like. The kind of the highs and lows. Like 1 minute you're kind of flying, feeling like you're the most productive person on earth, and then the next minute you're like, wow, I really need to take a nap. And
or it's sometimes I didn't have a choice. I just would pass out. So the nap was not.
Yeah, Joe used to pass out.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. So.
Well, like one of the things I used to get was the the orthostatic hypotension. So you get off the couch quickly, and your vision would go, and then you'd almost fall back down, and maybe sometimes you would fall back down.
Yeah, absolutely. I would get that, and there were times when I would just completely pass out from the low blood sugar, the blood sugar crash. But
I passed out a few times in high school soccer practice, distance running. I would just
passed out
really
once mountain biking, actually.
Down, and then my coach would bitch at me because I'd be like the last one to finish the run because I spent part of it on the ground, and nobody seemed really concerned about that. Oh, that's normal. Just get up and keep running. But now I know it was blood sugar issues because I pounded sweet foods and Captain Crunch and Gatorade, gallons of Gatorade, just uber Gatorade. Even on days where I did no training, I would drink like 32 ounces of Gatorade. Which people don't realize.
Like you're an athlete. That's.
Well, I looked like an athlete pounding all the Gatorade for sure.
Right, that's what I mean. Yeah. So,
all right.
That's the important part.
I want to ask you a few questions before we go about you, I guess. Outside of biking and outside of functional medicine type stuff, what else are you passionate about or enjoy doing? You have any other hobbies or interests?
No, honestly, at the moment, we counted it up. I sat down with my wife and counted it up the other day, and I think I'm spending over 100 hours a week either working. So I spend most of my time either on the phone or Skype with clients, or if I'm not doing that, I'm either producing, like recording interviews, editing the podcast, writing show notes, and I do some writing of articles, which I find very difficult. And then the rest of the time, I'm exchanging email with Tommy, my chief medical officer, and reading scientific studies. And then I do some training, but not super high volume. So yeah, outside there's really not much. And the main thing is my family, right? So I have a 2-year-old daughter, but I'm so lucky this business has given me the most incredible freedom that not many people enjoy, right? So most people have to commute to work and go to an office, and now I can just, the time I spend with my daughter, it's just weaved in throughout the day. So, I might be watching one of Brian Walsh's videos with my 2-year-old daughter sat on my lap, and that's the most amazing thing. So yeah, I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for that question, but there's really not much going on. I'm quite a kind of a hermit-like nerd.
Hey, I'm glad that you're doing that and that there's others doing the same thing, because then I have people I can call for answers.
Yeah, and it's not like work. I mean, it sounds like this is what you're passionate about, and researching is what drives you and gets you up in the morning along with your family. So I'm sure it doesn't feel like work.
No, absolutely, and that's the thing. It's such a strange word, isn't it? When I think of work, I think about digging holes in the ground, right? So I did a little bit of landscape gardening when I was a student, and that's work. That's really hard work. Yeah. Whereas this is the kind of fun stuff that I would be doing anyway. So yeah, it's not work. It's different work.
It's good when we could figure out a way to make a living at what we want to be doing anyway.
Yeah. And I've been lucky, I found a couple of things because I love the computer science too, and I still enjoy programming, and that's kind of one of my passions now. Is like when I have free time, I like go do some programming on something, and that's kind of like something a little bit different that I find really fun too.
It's probably more fun too when it's not your job.
Yeah, exactly. When you're your own boss and nobody's asking for it, and it's the motivation is all intrinsic. Yeah, then it's so much nicer.
Did you work on campus at Yahoo and Amazon, like at their headquarters?
Yeah, Yahoo I did. Yeah, I worked on campus at Sunnyvale, and then for Amazon, it was actually a subsidiary I worked for called Alexa Internet, they did like a internet statistics, and they had a little office in the Presidio. So if anyone's ever been to San Francisco, where the Golden Gate Bridge is, right in that little park there, it's a national park. is the Presidio, and they had an office. Somehow they had an office in that park, and
'Cause
so
they're
that was
Amazon.
like, yeah, this is Amazon. Yeah, so that was like a dream come true. You could like literally, I could walk from the office to Crissy Field, the beach, and throw up a kite and go kiteboarding underneath the Golden Gate Bridge. It was absolutely incredible.
That's a heck of a lunch break.
Yeah.
I've just heard stories about like Facebook and Amazon and Yahoo and like working at these locations
Google,
and
yeah.
how different, Google, and how different it is from what most people experience in an office environment or office life.
Yeah, I've been to Google recently to talk to them about some health stuff. You know, we worked with a guy that got great results with us running some tests and making some diet and lifestyle changes, taking some supplements, and we went to see one of their people that organizes. So Google has every type of, kind of healthcare that you could ever imagine, not just the kind of the regular health insurance, but also other plans too. And in the end, it seemed like we were going to have to jump through all kinds of fiery hoops to make our stuff happen at Google that, we just couldn't afford the investment in some of the software systems and stuff that they would need us to have. But, obviously I had a chance to look around the campus and the quality of food, the choices. It's definitely possible now to make some really fantastic choices at these big Silicon Valley companies at their canteens, and they're well aware of the dangers of sitting and artificial light, and I'm sure they're thinking about EMF exposure and people becoming too sedentary and overstressed and underslept, and yeah, I mean they're becoming extremely savvy, some of those companies.
That's great. That's an anomaly, I think, in this country. So that's
Maybe it'll trickle down to the rest of corporate America, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
No, I think
No.
cubicles and fluorescent lights for the rest of us for a long time. We want to just make sure that our audience knows where to find you. So let's just take a break here for a second and just, what's the name of your podcast?
The podcast. I actually have two podcasts. It's the Nourish, Balance, Thrive podcast is my main one, and then more recently, actually they're about the same age, but more recently it's been my wife, the food scientist, doing the Paleo Baby podcast.
Nice.
So that's more specific. It's related more to fertility and baby weaning and anything to do with like having kids.
Oh, cool. We'll definitely check that out. We've got a good audience since we've been doing the healthy baby series, so we'll have to check that out.
Ooh, excellent! Yeah, no, they've just done. Torreya is another local functional medicine practitioner, and Julie just did an interview for the Paleo Baby podcast about the fertility awareness method, which I admit, in my ignorance, I knew nothing about until about 3 months ago. And there's a book of the same name, and it really is. Like a required reading for all women. Like it's pretty amazing that this stuff is not better known. So yeah, I'll send you the link for that podcast. Maybe you could link to it in the show notes. It's a really fantastic episode.
Yeah.
Which book?
It is Taking Charge of Your Fertility.
Oh yeah, that book is fantastic, and I think that it should be mandatory reading in health classes in high schools or junior highs.
Yeah.
Like there should be an entire semester on it, I think, and I just I don't know. When I first read through it, I was just blown away that most women are never taught how their body works in any way whatsoever that's useful.
Yeah, no, and without getting too personal, I think I can say this. I've dated women with a PhD in computer science. And they have done their own research and looked at every different type of contraception and said, you know what, they all suck, and they just they revert to doing like the rhythm method or condoms or something else it's not that great. And the fertility awareness method, it doesn't matter whether you're trying to get pregnant or you're trying to avoid getting pregnant. It's like a pretty awesome thing, and it's amazing like how in some circles people are amazed that that anybody wouldn't know about it, but it seems like kind of in maybe white Caucasian people like me, like it's just not well known at all. And it'd be awesome if more people understood and knew about that book.
Excellent. All right. Well, is there anything else that you want our listeners to know about you, about your philosophy, your approach?
Yeah. So The way to think about me is as almost like an educator. So that's kind of it's taken me a while to kind of find out, sort of figure out who I am. Like I have no ambition to be a doctor who prescribes stuff. I don't want to be someone that holds. So I'm really into the organic acids urine test that I'm sure that you know and other people listening to this have heard of. And I don't want to be that guy that holds that test result really close to my chest and then to, hand out prescriptions for supplements or something like that. I really want to be that person that engages you, gives you just enough information to go and figure out the solution for yourself, right? So we know that our current system of healthcare doesn't scale. And it seems to me like the whole thing would scale so much better if all of these smart people listening to these podcasts were to just get their hands dirty a little bit and do the exact opposite of what all the doctors want you to do, and that's to educate yourself and understand what your test results mean. So, when someone comes to me and they order a blood chemistry, and I think ordering a blood chemistry with me is a really great place to start working with me, I'm not going to just like hand you a list of supplements without ever talking to you. I'm going to do my best to explain to you what these results mean, and then your job, I hope, is to like go away and try and figure out what ferritin is, for example, or what it means when you see high potassium and low sodium on a blood chemistry. Like, don't take my word for it. Go and find out, and I can point you at some papers which I think are relevant, but really it's up to you to try and figure this thing out for yourself. So I think that's what kind of makes me different, or that's what I really want to do. I want to be an educator rather than a prescriber, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense, and I think that's a really good message, that people really do need to take responsibility for their own health, for their own, what actions they take to try and improve their health. Have you ever had to actually fire a client just because they weren't being compliant, or they wanted the easy answer or the easy pill?
I really haven't. We've worked with, I counted it the other day, and it was 546 people, most of whom were like athletes. And I really haven't. I've just it's like kind of one of the things you learn, over time is like the person that you're likely to help the most. And in the type of podcasting and the article writing that you do, you tend to attract those people. Right. And so the selection process was already done by the time you get to talk to someone. And then that way you never have to face that situation where you're working with someone and you're just not a good fit. Like like I say, that selection has already been made for you before you start.
Yeah, that's a good point. Before we wrap up, you had mentioned there's something on your website in your About Us page that says you learned the hard way, so your clients don't have to. Give us an example of something that you learned the hard way.
Okay, so what about we already touched a little bit on the sports candy, right? Gatorade, maltodextrin gel.
Sports candy, beautifully worded.
Yeah,
so good.
And if you look at all exercise science is almost all junk. Like, it's some of the lowest quality science you will ever find. Like, if you talk to someone who does peer review, they'll confirm this. But there are lots of studies that show that carbohydrate supplementation is really helpful, especially for endurance athletes, right? And so it's not hard to prove that. If that's your belief, it's not hard to prove that point with studies, which I think is that's shaky even to begin with. And I kind of was led down that road through that way, and I started taking a lot of those maltodextrin gels and shock blocks and Cliff Bars and all the rest of that junk that everybody I'm sure is familiar with. And that led me to pre-diabetes. And now I can get you on the phone and just explain that, just ignore all that marketing and just drink water and eat real food, and you'll avoid that same problem that I ran into. And it saves a lot of heartache.
That's great. That's great, because I think everyone wants to fit everyone wants to be the square peg that fits nicely into the square hole, and not realizing that everyone's different. Like you said, you're doing this crazy endurance race, and you're going to basically do it on a ketogenic diet. Did I understand that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, that sounds like the complete opposite of what most people would suggest.
Oh yeah, so I get it all the time. You're a man, so like if you're doing exercise, you need carbohydrates. There's no way that you can pull this off, and yeah. And you kind of, once you've done it and you know it's possible and you've been doing it for a couple of years, you're like, no, you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're obviously still researching and learning, so your brain isn't shrinking at all.
Right.
Cool.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on, Chris, and sharing a little bit about yourself with our people. And I look forward to them seeing more of you and checking out your podcast. And maybe if you want to throw a video up on our site or something, I know that you, like I, have a block with writing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to do any quick videos, we'd love to get them out there and share. And I highly encourage everyone to head over to nourishbalancethrive.com and check out Chris's site and everything that they're doing. He's definitely one of my go-tos for complex questions or cases or anything. So head on over there, and thanks a lot, Chris.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and I will. It's one of my my least enjoyed tasks is writing and producing content in that way. So yeah, maybe the videos are the right way to go. So yeah, I will take that advice and get something up soon. Thank you.
All right, Chris. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Cheers then. Bye bye.
All right, there you go, folks. I told you that guy was awesome, right? You can find Chris at nourishbalancethrive.com, and make sure you check out his podcast as well, Nourish Balance Thrive and Paleo Baby. And be sure to visit us at rebelhealthtribe.com/join and use the code REBELPOD to get your first 30 days for free. All right, thanks for listening. That's all for now. We'll talk to you soon.